Chapter 4, January 12, 2201, New Denver. After stowing his coat, gloves, and boots back in the apartment, he headed over to the farm. It was a long trip. He took 3 different pathways to reach the farm, and then, since it was not a regularly traveled route, he climbed several flights of stairs and walked down a long corridor to reach the entrance. Because of the smell and the resources needed to have a farm underground, it was sealed behind a set of special double doors. You had to get permission to enter, and then you were escorted through the sets of doors until you were in the farm. Cooper had only been here a few times, mostly as part of his school research. As he closed the second door, he was immediately hit by the light and the greenery of the place. He was basically in an underground countryside. The lighting and breezes gave the impression of truly being outside, so much so that many of the younger students refused to come here for the fear of the openness. He could hear the sound of a cowbell in the distance, and then over the first ridge came Nate, the farmer. He looked just like what a farmer might look like from hundreds of years ago, dressed in coveralls and a hat with a piece of straw hanging from his mouth. He was a jolly fellow and seemed to be in his element, even though he was more than 300 feet underground. "Ah, young Cooper, I didn't expect to see you here so soon," Farmer Nate said with a grin. "Yes, I didn't think so either. My search was actually easier than I thought." "Well, come over here to the table and let's see what you found." The farmer continued beckoning Cooper to a small table and chairs off to the side of the hill. At the table, Cooper pulled out the plastic and rolled it out on the table. The farmer whistled in amazement. There before him were 4 knives, a butcher knife, 2 steak knives, and a bread knife. The artificial sun in the distance gleamed off the butcher knife as the farmer lifted it up to examine its strength. "Amazing!" the farmer exclaimed. "Simply amazing. I do not know how you found something so precious still available topside, but this is truly a gift. You truly are the greatest freelancer of all time." "It was nothing so special, Mr. Nate." Cooper blushed a little. "For these knives, I will promise to give you beef once a week for the next year," the farmer suggested. "Will you accept those terms?" "I will, and thank you. The algae rations have been harder on my father than me." Cooper shivered with glee at the fact that he had just won the ultimate prize. After finalizing the deal and signing the agreement on Farmer Nate's terminal, Cooper made the long trek back to the apartment. When he arrived, he found his father sleeping, so he took some time to check the news on the terminal. Another city, New Omaha, had fallen prey to a mold infestation, and the underground population was in turmoil. The news continued about the planet's Sperriere, as some of the religious sects were calling it. The preparations for the first large ship, the Mayflower, was continuing. The ship would mostly be filled with the rich elite, who saved everything to ensure that they would be the first to be allowed to venture to the New World. Currently, there was only a small military ship orbiting the planet. There was a lottery by nation for the other spots on the ship. And of course, there would also be a large military contingent on the Mayflower to run the ship and help with developing the city once they arrived. The news then turned to the weather. Huge storms were battering the East Coast again, blocking a major ventilation shaft to the underground city of New Philadelphia. But the National Guard was taking care of it. Cooper gave up on the news and moved into the kitchen. It was almost dinner time, and there should be a surprise. At that moment, he heard the beep of the processor as the food arrived. As soon as he opened it, he knew it was steak. He breathed it in like a boy obsessed. He was about to dive in when he heard his father enter. "What's that smell, Cooper?" he inquired, looking tired from the double shift, but strengthened by a new order. "I have great news, Dad." Cooper almost couldn't contain his excitement. "It's steak." And with that, they stood at the counter together and devoured the precious meat. Between bites, Cooper told his dad about the day's adventures, deciding to skip the details about the old man and the raiders, and focusing instead on the success of the trip and the farmer's eyes when he saw the knives. "Son, I'm so proud of you," exclaimed Mitch as he clapped Cooper on the back, accidentally causing him to choke a little. As Cooper lay in bed, he couldn't get over all that transpired that day. Was he just an extremely lucky person? How was it that those knives were just sitting there waiting for him to pick up? Who was the old man, and how did he know Cooper's name? And then the fear hit him. The raiders. They weren't just a myth, but a real danger to his business and frankly to his life. As he dozed off to sleep, he couldn't get the words of the old man out of his head. Cooper, you can be so much more than you are now. Don't let your present world hold you back from your purpose, your future. What did it all mean? Chapter 5, January 13th, 2201, New Denver. Cooper woke to the sound of the front door closing. His dad left to go back to work and he was alone. Normally, today was laundry day. He usually gathered all the laundry and headed down to the community laundry location for processing. However, he couldn't get all that he'd learned out of his head. While he knew it was extremely dangerous, he had to go back topside, track down the old man, and get some answers. He jumped up from bed and headed into the small bathroom. He showered quickly, noticing the water ration chart on the wall indicated they had plenty of gallons to spare, and headed into the kitchen. After taking one of the rations from the small refrigerator, heating it, and gobbling it down, he started to get ready. Since he might be topside for a while, he packed a couple of water bottles and a few power bars for the trip. Then it was back to putting on all of the winter gear and getting ready to go. He hesitated for a moment before leaving. The first few times he ventured topside, he felt a little uneasy about going, mostly because it was heading into the unknown. But today was different. He was genuinely scared to go. Seeing those raiders up close had thrown his confidence. They looked just about as scary as the stories had portrayed them. And while he didn't believe that they would actually kill him if they caught him, it did make him pause to consider if this was the best decision. What would he be doing if he wasn't a freelancer? Many of his peers just sat around playing games on a terminal at his age. They weren't really thinking about their future. And while he had asked a few, none of them would ever venture topside for any reason. He didn't see himself working at the fire pit like his dad. Sometimes he wondered why his dad worked that job. He was so much smarter than what was required for that work. He would have to think about that another time. Right now, he needed to go and find that old man. Chapter 6, January 13th, 2201, Denver, topside. As he made it to the top of the stairs, his stomach turned with anxiety. He didn't have much for the raiders to take, but he still didn't know what he would do if they were standing on the other side of the door. He approached it slowly, putting his ear to the door to see if he could hear anything. It was silent. Not even the wind was blowing right now, and based on the puddle of water in front of him, it looked like the sun melted the snowdrift from yesterday. He opened the door slowly, and the blast of light hit him in the face. As he opened the door, he realized that it was warmer, and he might need to take off a few layers. Even though it should be winter right now, Denver was always known for sunny days year-round. Even when it was below freezing, the sun kept you feeling warmer than you expected. He stepped through the door quickly and let it close gently back into place. He was outside again. It looked like the sun was just the right height in the sky to break through the holes in the parking lot garage and hit this space, warming it up. He scanned the parking lot for any changes, ready to go back downstairs to the safety of his home if he had to. But nothing looked any different, just the same as always. Luckily, the location of this entrance to New Denver was concealed here in the back of the parking garage. He moved forward, taking his time, continued to scan the parking area for anything of concern. After the famine and riots, most of the birds and animals were killed and eaten by people to survive, which is why Cooper was surprised to be confronted by a pack of dogs just a few days ago. Clearly, some animals, in addition to rodents and insects, still roamed wild, and he needed to remain alert and prepared for anything. As he reached the outside door, he listened again intensely. All seemed quiet. He opened the door just enough to get out, slipped through, and ran to the corner. Still no movement. He headed down the street back to where he met the old man the day before. Much of the snow from yesterday was gone, but a little remained, enough for him to still make footprints in it. He rounded the corner, and although it would be crazy, Cooper hoped he would find the old man still sitting there. But of course he wasn't. Sadly, the snow here had melted almost completely, and there were no tracks to follow. Cooper tried looking on both sides of the street, but there was no sign of the old man. All might be lost. Then he spotted something strange on the wall down near where it met the sidewalk. Looking both ways down the street, he crouched to get a better look at the wall. Written on it with chalk were a small sketch and a number. Cooper squatted even closer to the ground to figure out what it was. It looked like a book. The only reason he knew that it was a book was because Mrs. Terrell, the mom of one of his friends from school, collected them. Books were hard to come by since they weren't any printing machines anymore. Everyone had a terminal link in the apartment, and anything you needed to read was on the terminal. He found a few old books and traded them to Mrs. Terrell months ago. They were now behind the glass at his friend's house. He looked again. It was definitely a book, with the two covers and the pages showing as well. The drawing looked new, but not too new to attract the attention of everyone. He assumed it was a message left for him. But why? What was the old man trying to tell him? It is not like he had a book to read to learn more. Then he examined the number. Nothing unusual. It was the number 1955. If that was signifying a year, it was a long time ago. Maybe it was a time of day? Did he need to read a book at 1955 military hours? 7:55 p.m.? There was not much else to do here. He smeared the picture and number on the wall with some of the remaining snow to make sure no one else saw it. Then he grabbed his pack and started back home. As he walked, he thought about what the old man had said again. What could be his purpose in the future? He just didn't know. He was the son of a man who works at a burn pit, and he had no idea who his mother really was. She died when he was so young. The return trip was easy, and he made it back down the stairs quickly. While he was feeling safer about being topside, he didn't gain much from the trip. Was the old man trying to give him a hint about the future? Was he suggesting that he read more books online to learn and train for a new career? As he reached the bottom of the stairs, it hit him like a ton of bricks. The book might be a clue to how to find the old man. He remembered hearing from his friend Greg that decades before there were actually buildings that housed the books. Nearly every city had them. They were like the present terminals are now. Everyone had access to them. What did they call those again? He just couldn't remember. He was thinking so much, he almost ran into his friend coming down the passageway with his laundry bag. "Oops, sorry, Greg," said Cooper. "Yo, Cooper, hey man, how's it?" Greg asked, slipping into the jargon of the time. Greg was also 14 years old. He was much more social than Cooper and could actually be seen in this school's common room chatting up the ladies. Today it looked like Greg was doing what Cooper should have been doing, heading to the laundry area. Oh well. "I am good, man, really good. How does your mom... Hey, does your mom still collect books?" Cooper stopped and asked. "Sure, Cooper, of course. She's a crazy one, my mom. I mean, books, for real? Who needs books when you have a terminal at your fingertips? And the sound of the pages make when you turn them, it's like they are going to come apart at any moment," Greg continued, getting excited while laughing at the same time. "Do you think she would show them to me sometime?" Cooper asked, trying to gather a little more information. "Hey, your funeral, man," Greg laughed. "As soon as you ask her about the books, you're going to be stuck for hours while she takes you through each one that she owns. She'll even make you wear these special gloves so you don't get them damaged. It's a trip." "Well, I'm interested," Cooper said. "Okay, man, come with me. We'll drop these off at the laundry, and then I can take you to her. We will probably find her reading one of them." Greg laughed. Cooper followed Greg down to the community laundry. If you went on your assigned day, you could drop off your laundry, and they would wash and dry it for you for the next day pickup. There were some laundry facilities available for self-service and emergencies, but like everything else, it would cost you credits. Cooper heard that when everyone lived in Denver, they had jobs that paid money. There wasn't any money anymore. Everything you did paid in credits. You could use credits for lots of different things. The majority of people in New Denver worked for the government in some role. Here there were jobs to work in the laundry facilities. There were jobs in food preparation and others involving mining supplies that were sent into space. Normally on your 16th birthday, you would have to make a decision of what job to take. Then you trained for the position for the year. Since Cooper finished schooling at such a young age, he didn't have to make a decision on work yet. He didn't actually want any job, but he needed a way to make credits to survive in the future. After dropping off his laundry, they walked to Greg's apartment. Along the way they talked. "So, how is freelance going?" Greg had dropped his voice almost to a whisper when he used the word freelancing. Cooper appreciated him knowing that it was best if they didn't talk openly about it, what he did for a living, even though it took only one look at his winter clothes to know he wasn't dressed for New Denver. "Good, man," Cooper responded. Greg was his friend, and sometimes they shared things, but his recent events with the Raiders and the old man didn't seem like something he could share with anyone. "Hey, I really appreciate the cool ring you gave me last week, Greg said as he flashed his right hand, showing that he indeed wearing the ring that Cooper found. It was just a simple silver band, but Greg had done some work on polishing it, and now it flashed bright against the overhead lights. Yeah, that was an amazing find. Just to have it lying there in an old pile of rags, it was almost too easy, but I know how much you like the bling, so I thought you would enjoy it. You did a great job of cleaning it up, Cooper complimented. Hell yeah, the ladies love the bling. It has been a big hit in the common room as of late. You know, you should come down there with me. They would be fascinated by your stories, and they would give you a good and it would give you a good shot with some of them, Greg said as he nudged Cooper in the side. I suppose Cooper sort of hoped this conversation would be over soon. He was always shy around girls. He liked them, but he was much better and more confident when he was in his element, around mechanical things like the terminal and other gadgets like the old radio he restored. Maybe someday he would take up Greg on his offer, but for now he just wanted to get to Mrs. Terrell and find out more about the books. You are always so shy around the ladies, Cooper, and I just don't understand it. The stories you tell me about Topside, man. The ladies would be swooning all over you. Anyway, looks like we're home now, so you can talk to my mom about books. I still think you're crazy to do this, Greg said as he slowed down after turning the corner. They arrived at Greg's place and went in. Cooper had been to Greg's place a few times, but his mom was a little bit crazy, just like he said. Normally, Cooper wouldn't want to get caught in a conversation like this with her, but he needed the information to find the old man. As they entered, Cooper knew that he was in the right place. Along the upper walls and centered in the room were shelves of books. They were all behind glass. Mom! Greg yelled as he closed the door behind him. Mom! He yelled again. From down the hallway, Cooper could hear Greg's mom walking toward them. I hear you, Greg. Chill out. She came around the corner dressed in some common gray overalls that all of the maintenance workers in New Denver wore, especially those who worked in the ventilation systems. She was a short, stout woman who could light up a whole room with her smile and personality. Ah, Cooper, good to see you. Come in, come in. Thank you, Miss Terrell, Cooper said as he gave her a quick kiss on the cheek. Would you boys like a snack? I could order something up, Mrs. Terrell said, heading toward the kitchen. No, Mom, Greg said, stopping her. Actually, Cooper is here to see you, and I'm going to go do some homework. Interesting. Okay, Cooper, come, let's sit down, Mrs. Terrell said, gesturing to the chairs in the center of the room. Thank you, Mrs. Terrell. I'm here today because I wanted to ask you about books, Cooper said, noticing that Mrs. Terrell's face immediately lit up. Books? Wow, Cooper, I never took you for a bookworm. I always thought you were more of an adventure type. But whatever excites you? What do you want to know? Do you want me to read you something? Do you want to look at a book together? Mrs. Terrell's excitement shone through in her words. Well, not exactly. I was more interested in what it was like when everyone lived topside, Cooper started. Topside? Oh, I don't know I have many books on that subject. I mean, yes, most of the books were written when we lived above in the open air, but my books are not about the city, really. Wait. I do have one about Denver, now that I think about it. Hold on. Mrs. Terrell struggled to get out of her seat, but once she was up, she was moving quickly. She went from shelf to shelf looking for the book. She moved so quickly, Cooper wasn't able to stop her. Mrs. Terrell, I actually wanted to know more about the places where books were stored rather than a specific book or subject, Cooper said, trying to bring her back on track. Mrs. Terrell continued looking, mumbling to herself, Now, where did I put that book? You know, when people lived topside, they all had coffee tables. Yes, can you believe it? Specific tables to hold coffee. Anyway, the book I want to show you is called a coffee table book. It's a big book that was placed on the coffee table. Crazy, I know, but wait, here it is. She almost jumped when she found it, quickly bringing it back from the shelf in the corner. Now, you will have to wear these gloves when you look at it. This book is over 100 years old, you know, Mrs. Terrell said as she pulled two pairs of gloves out of her pocket, putting one set on as she handed another to Cooper. Cooper put them on as he spoke. Mrs. Terrell, what I was trying to say is that I'm interested in places where books were stored. I think that you mentioned it one time when I was over here, something about being able to borrow them. Oh, yes, Cooper. They were called libraries. A library was a place where you could check out books, read them, and return them in a certain amount of time for free. For free! Can you even believe it? What kind of time that must have been? All those books to look at and read. Mrs. Terrell's voice faded as she looked off into space, dreaming of libraries. Yes, yes, Cooper exclaimed. Libraries. Were there any libraries in Denver? Mrs. Terrell was still looking off into space, lost in her own thoughts. Mrs. Terrell? She snapped out of it and looked at Cooper with a blank stare. Yes? I was asking you about the libraries. Were there any in Denver? Oh, yes, yes. There were many libraries in Denver. Actually, there was a beautiful one in the center of town near the Capitol building. Wait, she said, laying the book down in front of her. She opened it up and looked through the table of contents, scanning the titles. Here you go, page 45. She started flipping pages carefully. Isn't this book amazing? The pictures are a bit faded, but this was handed down to me from my great-great-grandmother, who actually lived in the heart of the city before, the bad times. She whispered, putting her hand to her heart and bowing her head. She continued to flip the pages, then stopped suddenly. Here it is. She turned the book toward Cooper and showed him the picture. It was an interesting building, not like the ones he normally saw when he was topside. It was much lower to the ground than the skyscrapers. The buildings had a unique color to them, white and red stone. The most interesting feature had to be what Cooper could only describe as a turret, with a wooden structure along the top. Mrs. Terrell was reading from the description. When this library was built in 1955, it was one of the biggest libraries in the country. It receives more than 1 million visitors a day. Whoa. Oh, she exclaimed, putting her hand to her mouth. They received more visitors each year than we have in all of New Denver. But it was the year she mentioned that caught Cooper's attention. He glanced at the page again, and embedded in between the paragraphs was a picture of the nameplate on the side of the library. This had to be the clue the old man was trying to tell him. A library built in 1955. All Cooper could think was how he could get out of this conversation quickly and get to Denver Central Library. But Mrs. Terrell was still rambling on. Imagine it, Cooper. All of those books in one place, and I'm sure they were reading nooks where you could just sit all day and read without ever having to leave. Mrs. Terrell, Cooper said it twice before she snapped out of her dreamy haze to look at him. Mrs. Terrell, I want to thank you so much for the information. Of course, Cooper. Cooper, would you like me to get a few more books down for us to look at? Mrs. Terrell asked, looking hopeful that he would answer yes. No thank you, ma'am. Actually, I need to get going. I still have to drop off the laundry, Cooper said. Oh, okay. Well, take care of yourself, Cooper, and please don't hesitate to come back again and talk books, Mrs. Terrell said, obviously saddened by his answer. Cooper thanked her again, took off the gloves, and got out of the apartment as quickly as he could. He got back to his own apartment in record time, grabbed the water bottle and power bar out of his pack, and not even bothering to take off all his gear, sat down at the terminal. The laundry could wait. He needed to do more research on this library. Remembering back to one of the first times he went topside, he called up an ancient map showing the streets of Denver. He was looking for a library. It took him a few minutes to get oriented on the map, but then there it was, on 13th Avenue and Broadway, just like the book had said, close to the city's Capitol building. He avoided that direction on most trips topside because of the rumors he heard about the Capitol area during the riots. Much of the history of the riots was lost, and the terminal didn't provide much more than dates. However, during community meetings, older men and women shared stories of how devastating the riots were. The climate had changed over time, making living near the coastal areas impossible. Then some bugs developed immunity to the pesticides and wiped out much of the food supply, leading to worldwide famines. Across the world, the devastated families came to the big cities seeking help from the government. When the government couldn't help, the riots began. This led to armed conflict when the military moved in to restore order. For the city of Denver, the main riots started at the Capitol building, so this was where it was rumored much of the fighting occurred. He would have to be careful on this journey, for sure, but it meant a new adventure, which he liked. The location of the library was further than he'd ever gone before as well, so he felt like he would need a map to get there. He looked through the piles of junk that he accumulated over the past year. He remembered that he did have one piece of paper. He moved aside the 3 clocks he was working on and the small generator he was trying to get running and found the piece of paper. It was stuck in what looked like some sort of printer that he found at an office supply store a few weeks back. He didn't know what use he would have for the paper and a pencil, but he took them anyways. Well, now was as good a time as any to put them to use. He laid out the paper and looked carefully at the picture of Denver and the streets on the terminal. He drew out a map for the streets he would take to get there. When his map was complete, he folded it up and put it in his winter coat for tomorrow.